should only the US have nuclear weapons? So I would argue yes, contrary to what many others would say. They would say this is unfair, blah blah blah, but I am going to present to you an argument grounded in Martin Heidegger, essentially saying that yes, indeed, the US should be the only one to have nuclear weapons. No one else in the world should have this tremendous power at their disposal. And so, this is my argument in a nutshell. Basically, number one, that nuclear weapons represent the ultimate technological danger of what Matua Heidegger called Gestell, or framing. The second point is that the historical revelations of that danger occurred through the horrors, crimes actually, of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and make no mistake about it, the fact of the matter is that the US is the only country in the entire world that has used these evil weapons against civilian populations, and that occurred in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, both of which were incredibly evil acts that ought to cause reflection. And so that is my second point. My third point is that the nation responsible for the revelation, the sort of revelation of the danger of certain technology, carries a unique historical consciousness of said danger. And so that is the US. So basically, what I'm arguing is that it is because of her crimes in Nagasaki and Hiroshima that the US ought to carry the sole responsibility of owning these weapons rather than in spite of her crimes in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. My fourth point is that a political structure with strong internal checks and balances provides and debate as well provides a mechanism for ongoing reflection about technological power. And so that would be my fourth point. The other point that I would make, that is my point, is that it is not in spite of, but actually because of the crimes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that the US ought to carry that responsibility. And again, the mechanism for ongoing reflection about technological power, which is because of the strong internal checks and balances that the US has, which allows for debate, is what gives them this permission. And finally, number five, therefore, the state that both revealed the danger historically, meaning that they are the ones, who committed the crime, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and possess institutions capable of reflecting on that danger, which they evidently did. A lot of people don't know this, but we had for example, there were the Hiroshima Maidens who did a tour of the US. It's actually rather gut-wrenching, the footage in which the pilot, you could actually see it, it's on an old 1950s show, recounted how he had been the one to drop the bomb, and how when he got back to the ship that he was on, the aircraft carrier, he said to his superior, "My God, what have we done?" And you could just see that he had just been absolutely wrecked by being the one responsible for dropping the bomb. He was only 18, 19 years old at the time, which itself I would argue was a crime. Forcing an innocent 18, 19-year-old to do something like that is wow, So that's yeah. But basically, they state that both revealed the danger historically and possesses institutions capable of reflecting on that danger. Must be the most responsible custodian of nuclear weapons. So, this is my controversial conclusion. Because the United States revealed the essence of using Heideggerian language here, of nuclear technology through Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and because its institutional structure allows ongoing reflection on that danger, it should remain the sole possessor of such weapons. So that is my point. Now, I would like to get into each sort of premise, if you will, of my argument. So this is the first one. So technology, revealing, and responsibility. So Martha Heidegger argued that modern technology is not merely a set of tools, but a mode of revealing, what he called Gestell, or as it would be translated to in English, inframing. I don't really like to use the English term. I prefer the original German. I'm a big believer in linguistic originality when it comes to different thinkers, simply because there often isn't a word that can sort of serve the purposes that we have here. So, under Gestell, the world appears as a standing reserve of resources ordered for control and use. So, his key ideas that are relevant technological power reveals humanity's essence as ordering power. So basically, Martha Heidegger talked about how technology essentially gives the human animal mastery over nature. That's sort of what he talked about, the ability to harness, extract, and obtain resources for our personal use. The danger of technology, however, is not machines themselves, but the mindset that reduces beings to resources. So this is what he argued. Ironically, he himself was a devout Nazi, to put it bluntly. And so he had seen firsthand the horror of reducing beings to resources, and I can't help but feel that these reflections in his later age, this is when he came up with it, was in his elderly years, was as a result of his experiences with the Third Reich and perhaps some of the horrors that he had seen. So, Martha Heidegger paradoxically says that, or famously said, that where the danger is grows the saving power also. And so, in his mind, the very sight of danger can disclose the possibility of a deeper responsibility. And so, if we look at nuclear weapons, it would represent the ultimate form of Gestell, the ability to annihilate entire cities instantly. That's sort of what Martha Heidegger is getting at. So, when we look at the examples of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the objectively evil crimes of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In fact, I would argue that there are very few things that can rival what was done there. Because when you think about it, Hiroshima, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were not just crimes against the people that lived there, but crimes against subsequent generations due to having, I hate to put it like this, effed up the gene pool, because radiation deforms DNA that is then passed on. But then, on top of that, it was a war against the environment, against nature itself, and humanity as a whole. For every nuclear bomb that is set off in the atmosphere, cancer rises. A lot of people don't know that. And so it's estimated, I think it was estimated by Freeman Dyson, that for every nuclear bomb, one person unconnected to the events will die because of what happened. And so Hiroshima and Nagasaki were crimes against the people there, the subsequent generations of Japanese to come, humanity at large, and nature, the Earth Mother herself. And so there really is no justifying the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so what we could do is we could interpret these horrific crimes through what Martha Heidegger would call a world historical disclosure of technological danger. So the event did three things. Number one, revealed the full essence of technological power. Humanity can destroy itself. That's number one. Number two, forced global reflection on technological responsibility. And number 3 created a historical memory tied to the anchor who performed it. And so, in Heideggerian language, the United States becomes the site where the essence of nuclear technology first came into the clearing. Well, that would be the English term. The original term German would be Lichtung, the place where truth about technological being becomes historically visible. My third point, the role of institutional reflection, checks and balances. So, when it comes to the political structure of the United States, its constitutional system of checks and balances creates institutionalized reflection. And so, basically, this is it. A system that distributes authority prevents technological power from becoming pure instrumental domination. Reflection and critique, courts, legislature, public debate, etc., allow society to think about technology rather than merely deploy it. Thus, the political system could be framed as a structure that keeps technological power within a horizon of questioning. And so, again, this is very different to the sort of German regime that Martin Heidegger found himself under, where there was no ability to self-reflect and so on and so forth when it came to the crimes of Germany. This is not the case for the US. This is the case, I would argue, for, say, France today, which is why I would never, ever, ever trust the EU, but that's a different subject. So, number 4, learning through historical guilt. So, Martin Heidegger often stresses in his work that authentic understanding arises from confronting one's historical situation rather than ignoring it. This line of reasoning, the United States, is this. The United States uniquely bears the historical burden of having used nuclear weapons. Because that guilt cannot be erased, it becomes a permanent reminder of technological danger. Therefore, this burden could force a continuous remembering of the catastrophic potential of Gestell. So the paradoxical claim emerges. The country that first revealed nuclear technological danger might also be the one historically compelled to guard against it. Stranger things have happened in terms of human history. And finally, number 6, sorry, sorry. I wanted to address any sort of Heideggerians out there that might sort of say my argument is not relevant or whatever. And so what they would probably argue is that Martin Heidegger distrusted modern technological civilization in general, including the United States, and that he warned that technological thinking tends to expand globally, not remain contained, and that from his perspective, nuclear weapons anywhere may simply reflect the same technological gestalt. So a Heideggerian critique might say, for example, the problem is not which nation holds nuclear weapons, but the global technological mindset that made them possible. Again, I would counter this with the material element of, checks and balances and so on and so forth. And the other thing as well is I would say that I read Heidegger via Martin Derrida. Martin Heidegger, I read through Martin Derrida. We can get into that another time for those of you that are interested. And so, that is basically my thoughts on the matter in using Martin Heidegger to try and put forth my point that the US ought to be the only one to have nuclear weapons. My Martin Heidegger-based defense of exclusive US nuclear position relies on sort of 3 philosophical ideas. Number 1, nuclear weapons as the ultimate expression of technological gestalt, that Hiroshima and Nagasaki serve as the historical revelation of that danger, and that institutional reflection is a mechanism for responsible stewardship. That is my argument put forth as to why I believe only the US should possess nuclear weapons.